Today we're breaking down one of the toughest, most confusing situations in a relationship, that gut feeling that his attention might be shifting. We're not here to feed paranoia or create jealousy. Instead, we're going to talk about a very specific, often subconscious, signal that can reveal where his focus truly is. This is about empowering you to trust your intuition and understand the silent language of attraction. Now, before we go any further, it is absolutely essential that we set the stage properly. I need to be very clear about what we are not talking about here. This is the most important part of this entire conversation, because the last thing I want is for anyone to take this information and use it to create anxiety, suspicion, or drama where none exists. So, let's start with a massive disclaimer. One single signal, on its own, is never proof of infidelity or even that he's planning to be unfaithful. Human connection is complex and beautiful. People can be friendly, charming, and engaged with others without it meaning anything negative for their relationship. A smile, a laugh, a conversation. These are all parts of normal, healthy social interaction, and we do not want to pathologize that or turn every friendly exchange into a source of paranoia. The real value of understanding this secret signal comes from context and patterns. Think of it not as a standalone verdict, but as a single piece of a much larger puzzle. It gains significance primarily when you start to see it consistently, and especially when it's combined with other, more noticeable shifts in his behavior and your dynamic as a couple. The signal itself might be the first clue your intuition picks up on, the thing that makes you go, that felt different. But it's the broader pattern that confirms whether your intuition is guiding you toward a real issue or just picking up on static. The ultimate goal here is never to make you feel more anxious. It is to give you a framework for understanding what you might be feeling, so you can move from a place of confused worry to one of clarity and empowerment. Because of this, it's crucial to identify the red herrings, the common things we often fixate on that are not the secret signal we're discussing. For instance, it is not just him following a new person on social media. In a vacuum, that means nothing. It is not just him having a female friend, colleague, or workout partner. Men can and should have healthy, platonic friendships with women. And it is not just him working late sometimes. Life has seasons of busyness and pressure that have everything to do with career and nothing to do with attraction. These things, on their own, are weak indicators because they lack the specific, subconscious nuance we're delving into. Focusing on them will only lead you down a rabbit hole of misinformation and unnecessary heartache, which is the exact opposite of what we're trying to achieve today. So, let's get into the heart of it. What is this specific, often subconscious signal? In the world of body language and behavioral psychology, it has a name. It's often referred to as the triangle gaze. But the part that most people miss, the truly telling component, is what I call the look back. This isn't about one single glance, but a very distinct two-part pattern. Let's break it down. The first part is all about where his attention is going. When he is speaking to or listening to someone he feels a spark of attraction with, his eyes do not simply meet hers. Instead, they begin to trace a subtle, repetitive pattern across her face. It's a small, unconscious triangle, from one of her eyes, down to her mouth, and then back up to her other eye. This isn't a quick, fleeting thing. You'll see the pattern repeat. It's a slow, deliberate scan of the most intimate parts of her face. This happens for a deeply rooted, biological reason. This triangle gaze is largely involuntary, a silent testament to where the brain's interest truly lies. The eyes are the windows to connection and engagement, but the mouth is powerfully associated with intimacy. It's the source of the smile he might be drawn to, of speech, and of kissing. So, when his gaze drops to her lips, even for a micro moment, it's his brain's way of savoring the stimulus and subconsciously considering a deeper level of intimacy. This is not just a random theory, it's a well-documented pattern in the study of nonverbal communication, recognized as a key indicator of attraction and heightened, personal interest. It's the difference between looking at someone and visually exploring them. Now, contrast this with how he looks at a friend, a colleague, or someone for whom he has no romantic feelings. That gaze is typically more direct and stable, anchored around the eyes. It's a conversation, not an exploration. There's no lingering scan, no repeated visual journey down to the lips. The feeling is entirely different because the intention is, too. But here is the crucial context, the part that transforms this from an interesting observation into a meaningful signal. The true secret isn't just that he's looking at her in this way. The key is what happens immediately after that triangle gaze. Almost without fail, and with lightning speed, his eyes will flicker away from her and directly to you. This is the look back. It's a micro-expression, a split-second check to see if you witnessed that intimate moment. This glance in your direction is the silent confession. It's the signal that confirms he is acutely aware, on some level, that the interaction he just had was charged, that it crossed an invisible line, and that it needed to be monitored by you. The triangle gaze shows attraction, but the quick, almost guilty glance back at you reveals his conscious awareness of that attraction, and that is the combination that truly tells the story. Now that you know what to look for in that initial, nonverbal moment, it's absolutely vital to step back and view the entire landscape of your relationship. The triangle gaze and the look back are powerful clues, but they exist within a broader context. They are the whisper. You now need to listen for the echoes. When you start noticing this pattern of looking, it's time to quietly and objectively observe if other pieces of the puzzle are falling into place. These aren't accusations, but rather correlating signs that, when combined, paint a much clearer and more reliable picture of where his focus and emotional energy are truly flowing. The first and perhaps most palpable sign is a shift in energy. Pay attention not just to how he acts around her, but how he acts around you afterward. You might notice that after an interaction with her, or even just in her presence, he seems more energized, more engaged, and more animated than he has been with you in a long time. He's laughing louder, leaning in more, and his whole demeanor is bright and lively. Then you come home and the contrast is stark. The energy drops. He's quieter, more withdrawn, maybe scrolling on his phone or distracted. It's that palpable difference between the effort and vibrancy he shows the outside world and the low-energy routine he reserves for you that can be so telling. It's the feeling that you're witnessing the best version of him, just not directed at you anymore. Then there is the test of the defensive response. In a secure, platonic situation, a simple, gentle observation like, "You two seem to get along really well," should be met with neutrality or even agreement. A partner with nothing to hide might say, "Yeah, she's fantastic to work with," or, "Oh, she's hilarious, right?" There's no charge to it. However, if that simple comment is met with immediate and disproportionate defensiveness, if he snaps, what is that supposed to mean? Or gets angry and accuses you of being jealous or paranoid, it's a major red flag. This defensive wall is often less about your question and more about his own internal guilt or anxiety being triggered. He's not defending the friendship, he's defending against being discovered. Beyond the emotional cues, look for tangible changes in behavior, what I call the new habits. This often manifests as a sudden and heightened sense of privacy around his digital life. The phone that used to lie around now always goes with him, screen down. Passwords get changed without a clear reason. You might notice he's suddenly very active on social media or messaging apps at odd hours. Or he might pick up new hobbies or commitments that inexplicably don't include you and are used as a reason to be away from home more often. These are behavioral walls being erected, creating separate spaces and a life that you are no longer privy to. Finally, and most painfully, there is the overarching feeling of emotional distance. This is the cumulative effect of all the other signs. You can be sitting right next to him on the couch, but it feels like there's a mile between you. Conversations are superficial. The shared jokes, the future plans, the deep, intimate knowing of each other, it all starts to fade. You feel more like roommates or co-managers of a household than partners. This distance isn't about having a busy week or a rough patch. It's a persistent, hollow feeling that the emotional foundation of the relationship is slowly being withdrawn. When you see the look, and you feel this distance, and you notice the defensiveness and the new secrets, that is when you know you are not just imagining things. The isolated signal has now become part of a coherent, and much more concerning, story. So, you've observed the signal, and you're seeing a pattern with other concerning signs. This is the moment where anxiety can easily take the wheel, leading to actions you might later regret. That's why having a clear, empowered plan is critical. This isn't about winning a confrontation, it's about seeking the truth and protecting your own peace. Let's start with what not to do, because missteps here can shut down communication and make it impossible to get the clarity you need. First and foremost, do not launch into a direct accusation based solely on this one piece of evidence. Coming at him with, "I saw you giving her the triangle gaze," will immediately put him on the defensive, make you sound like you're inventing theories, and give him an easy way to dismiss your very real concerns as paranoia. Secondly, resist the powerful urge to snoop through his phone or private messages. Beyond the violation of trust, this tactic almost always backfires. If you find nothing, you're left with the guilt of your own actions. If you find something, you've given him an easy way to shift the blame onto your invasion of privacy, muddying the waters of the real issue. And finally, do not let yourself become a full-time detective. Constantly monitoring his social media, ruminating on every word he says, and trying to piece together a case is utterly exhausting and profoundly damaging to your mental health. It keeps you trapped in a cycle of fear and suspicion, which is no way to live. Instead, let's focus on a path that prioritizes your well-being and seeks genuine understanding. The first step is to move from emotional reaction to objective observation. Start keeping a private journal. This isn't a diary of your fears, but a simple, factual log. Note the date, the situation, and what you observed without layering on heavy interpretation. For example, Saturday at the barbecue, noticed the prolonged gaze and look back during conversation with Sarah. Felt a drop in energy on the car ride home. The act of writing it down does two things. It gets the swirling thoughts out of your head, and it allows you to look back over time and see with cold, hard facts whether this is a one-off incident or a persistent pattern. This gives your intuition data instead of just dread. When you feel you have observed enough to know this isn't just in your head, it's time to open a conversation, but the approach is everything. This is where I statements become your most powerful tool. The goal is to express your experience of the relationship's climate without blaming him for specific actions. Choose a calm, neutral moment and frame it around the connection between you. You could say something like, "I've been feeling a bit of a distance between us lately, and I really miss our connection. I wanted to check in and see if everything is okay from your perspective." This opens a door instead of slamming a wall. It invites him to share his experience and makes it about the us, not the them. It's much harder for someone to get defensive when you are expressing a vulnerable feeling rather than launching an attack. Alongside this, make a conscious effort to reinvest in the relationship before you assume the very worst. Sometimes, distance is a symptom of neglect, not necessarily of betrayal. Be the one to proactively suggest a date night, to initiate a conversation about something other than logistics, to try to recreate the spark that brought you together. This serves a dual purpose. Firstly, it might genuinely reignite something that has simply been smothered by routine. And secondly, his reaction to your attempts to connect will be incredibly revealing. A partner who is simply stuck in a rut will often gratefully receive the effort. A partner whose emotional energy is invested elsewhere will often resist, make excuses, or remain disengaged, which in itself is a powerful piece of information. Throughout this entire process, the most important thing you can do is learn to trust your gut. Your intuition is a sophisticated instrument that processes millions of data points, tone of voice, body language, microexpressions, energy shifts, long before your conscious mind can put it into words. That initial feeling that something is off is a signal worth honoring. The goal of this empowerment plan is not to hand you a verdict, but to give you a process. It's about gathering enough objective information and observing enough consistent patterns that you can move from a vague, unsettling feeling to a confident understanding of your reality. Because when you know, you know. And that knowledge, however painful, is what gives you the power to decide what you will and will not accept in your relationship, and to take the next steps from a place of strength, not fear.